Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's IBSI Forum on Africa, Israel, and Black America. I'm your host, Joshua Washington, and I'm joined by our lovely co-host, Olga Mishway Washington.
Good evening, everyone.
We have a lot of things to talk about today. We're going to start off with just a couple of announcements. First of all, yesterday in Harlem, North Carolina, in Harlem, New York, we had an amazing time at Zion Cafe. There was a fundraiser that we had put on. We let you guys know about. The turnout was really great. We had lots of great live music. Supported the restaurant. If you live in New York, if you're in New York City, make your way to Zion Cafe. It's amazing Ethiopian food. The owner is an Ethiopian Israeli named BJ. She's incredible. She started this restaurant a couple of decades ago almost now, and it's been going strong. The restaurant's been placed on a boycott list, and it's been vandalized quite a few times, especially since October 7th. So we've had a great time with them yesterday, helping them raise some money. And if you're in the area, please go out and support. They would really appreciate that. The next announcement is tomorrow. What's happening tomorrow, Olga?
Tomorrow, we've been talking about this for a few weeks now. We're excited to finally, together with the local federation as well as JCC here in Charlotte, be hosting the incredible activist, former slave, Mr. Simon Dane. He's going to be spending time at Shalom Park in Charlotte, both in the afternoon as well as in the evening. We're going to be having 2 sessions. It's going to be incredible. It's themed around Juneteenth, talking about freedom and the fact that, yes, freedom has been achieved for slaves here in America, but there are still many slaves across the world, more specifically on the African continent, that remain in chains, both figuratively as well as just by virtue of how they're treated. And we'll be learning about their plight as well as what can be done about it.
Yes. So register, come out. People have been asking if we are live streaming. We're not. So if you want,
we want to see you there.
We want to see you there. We want, especially those who are in the Charlotte area, even those in South Carolina, even those, maybe just up north from us. It's not that far of a drive. You should definitely come out and meet Simon, engage with us. It's going to be a wonderful event at a beautiful venue. And we'll be talking about the most pressing human rights issue of our day. So please, if you're seeing the poster in front of you, scan the QR code with your phone right now, or you can click the link, go to ibsi.org/dates, and you can see our events. By the way, visit our website at ibsi.org for all of our upcoming events and other content that we share as well. And then lastly, and we'll do other announcements later on, but lastly, June 25th and 26th, we will be, along with the African Jewish Alliance, which we are a partner with in DC, for the summit for this very issue that we're talking about. The event that we're doing tomorrow with Simon Dang is connected to this. We'll be speaking with our Congress people about the slavery that is taking place in many different parts of Africa, primarily Sudan, Nigeria, Libya, Mauritania, and Algeria. So if you're in that area, you can sign up, you can register and join us for what will be, I think, a very powerful putting our feet, to work, praying with our feet. So we would love for you to join us. So scan the QR code and see what we're doing. Register. If you can't make the events that we have going on, you can still donate to the events. We would greatly appreciate that as well. And you can also donate by becoming a legacy builder, which is a monthly giver. You go to ibsi.org/donate, and you can see how you can give to IBSI and help us continue this very, very important work. All right.
All right. Maybe let's just say that all donations are tax deductible. So there is the benefit of that. And because you raised this, also want to mention the fact that on our IBSI website, we have an online store with some incredible merch. This is an example of one of those. We've got water bottles, we have t-shirts, there's also hoodies, as well as things for the little ones. Our 2 little boys have got these great Iron Line Zion Cub t-shirts, which we will hopefully have one of the boys maybe stay up next week, so you can see it live on them. But yes, please do please do go to our website and check out our store for incredible merch. Last thing that is very important, if you haven't already got it as part of your merch, is the book Zionism and the Black Church, Why Standing with Israel Will Be a Defining Issue of Color for
A
a
defining
defining issue for people of
Christian
color
in the 21st
in the
century.
21st century by our CEO, Pastor Dumisani Washington. It's an incredible, incredible resource. And if you don't already have it in your library, we encourage you to go on and make a purchase.
Yes. All right. So now we got to get into some issues today. We have a couple of quick things to talk about, but still very, very important. We heard this news last week. It was actually last
Tuesday.
So the day after our forum last week, we heard of this news in Malawi. Although you can share a little bit more with the people about that.
So last week we spoke a little bit about the country of Malawi, as well as the exchange program that Malawi has entered into with the Israeli government or the Israeli people to provide workers to help on the farms as a result of the atrocities of October 7, as well as the internal displacement, because of the war. There's a great need for help on the farms. And so we spoke about how some of the help was being provided by Malawans. We then learned, like Joshua said, the day after, that the vice president of Malawi, together with his wife, as well as various government officials, unfortunately were killed in an aircraft crash. Apparently it was due to poor weather. So we just wanted to, on behalf of the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel, knowing that they being the Malawian administration as well as the Malawian people, are people who represent how Africa truly feels about Israel, their love for Israel. We wanted to express our sincere condolences, not only to the families, but also to the president, as well as other members of the Malawian administration.
Yes. Thank you, Olga. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we talked about it last week. Obviously, we didn't know what was going to happen. When we learned about what happened in Malawi, that was kind of a news that we had gotten that day. So we'll talk about it on that Monday. And then the next day is what happened. So, but IBSI is very much, as much as we can, be connected to what's going on the ground, not just in Israel, but across the continent with our different partners. And so, we were very saddened to hear this news, and our hearts were with the families of the vice president and his wife, and everyone who's affected the country at this time. So, yes. Okay. Also, ladies and gentlemen, want to talk just a moment. I almost posted a clip, but then I decided not to, because I really don't want to give more airtime to these people. But we do need to address something, and that something is called the horseshoe theory. Some of you are familiar with this theory, and some of you are not. The horseshoe theory is a theory that basically says any extreme in politics, the extreme left, the extreme right, they're not two wings. People like to say left wing, right wing, right? If they would be like wings, if maybe the wings were like about to flap like this, right? A horseshoe theory means the extremes meet each other on the other end, right? And whether or not you believe in that theory, the theory was very much in full effect when Candace Owens, which we've talked about on this platform a few times, and we've also written a few articles, and Brianna Joy Gray came together on Candace's podcast to talk about really the only thing that they probably have in common, which is the Jews and Israel.
Can I be more specific?
Yes.
Jew hatred. It was a Jew hate phase.
Well, I was going to say, right. Well, the topic that they came together on was whether or not Israeli women were actually raped on October 7th. So Candace was already disputing a lot of this stuff, and we talked about this. Brianna was disputing this a few months ago, talking about this whole believe all women thing is the fault in the whole the hashtag believe all women movement that happened, which I do agree. I always agree with that. You can't paint a whole group of people as anything. You can't say all Black people steal, and you can't say all Black people are noble. People are people, right? You can't say every woman who says they were raped is telling the truth, and you can't say that every woman who said who's raped is lying. You have to, which is why we have investigations, which is why we have court of law. Someone makes an accusation, and it has to be investigated. So what she was saying wasn't wrong. It's just that she definitely didn't say this a couple of years ago when Believe All Women was at its height. She was in support of the movement. Now you have Brianna on the Hill, formerly, with an Israeli woman, and they have an interview. They go back and forth. At the end of the interview, the Israeli woman tells her, I think that you specifically, Brianna, should go look at the recordings and believe the women when they say that. And then Brianna wouldn't even let her finish her sentence. She rolled her eyes and she said, oh my goodness, thank you so much for coming on the show. And they cut her off. So then everyone's in an uproar about that. Brianna gets fired from the Hill. And then she complains that she's getting fired because she's outspoken about Israel and the Hill wants to silence her. Same reason why Candace said she got fired from Daily Wire, which it's looking more and more like her contract, which is up. She was already wanting to leave, but that's a whole different story. In both cases, especially when it comes to the Hill is not a conservative. The Hill is very far left. The Hill has published tons of articles criticizing Israel unfairly most of the time. But Brianna still wants to do the whole they hate me because I'm outspoken about Israel thing. So then Candace tweets at Brianna and says, I would love to invite you onto my podcast. And then they come together and Candace validates Brianna by telling her that she also rolled her eyes when she also rolls her eyes when she hears about the Israeli women talking about how they were raped by Hamas. Now, the problem with all this is that Hamas filmed themselves raping the Israeli women. And that's the thing that boils our blood the most here at IBSI is that this is not hearsay. This is not something that's in dispute. Hamas filmed themselves, particularly with one woman. They gang raped her. They cut her breasts off. They passed her around. The last person to rape her shot her in the head, and then he finished. Okay, this is filmed. They filmed this. So the fact that you're coming together to say that this actually happened is you're not even that smart in that case. Like you're trying to poke holes in something that is unpokeable. Like there's no dispute. It's not like it was an article written and now people are like opining on it. This happened and the people who did it filmed themselves. So they came together to talk about that, which we weren't surprised given where Candace has been lately and with her whole branding crisis king and selling merchandise that's like, I don't know, $80-something for a mug anyway. Now Brianna has that same complaint. They're coming together. That's the horseshoe theory. Brianna is far left, as left as you can possibly get. Candace is pretty far right now, but here's where they come together. They come together on Jew hatred, like what you were saying. Go ahead, Olga.
I chuckle not because I think this is funny. I chuckle because it is so stupid. Stupid, dishonest. The level of trying to, I have to pause because I need to choose my words carefully. The posturing of the righteous posturing, and particularly underneath the banner crisis king, conversation for another day, but as a Christian particularly, that really grates me up. But the righteous posturing and the advocating for freedom of press and allow Americans to be able to think how they want to think and to be able to speak how they want to think, and even questioning, oh my gosh, is America now at the behest of Israel, is so absurd that the only thing that makes plausible sense for why Candace continues to have this conversation and continues to find really insignificant with respect to topics or individuals to have this conversation with is because she's driven by Jew hatred. Like period. Joshua, I did not have the stomach that you had today to watch that interview by her. But I will say that it is a shame. There's even moments, I did watch her interview with Piers Morgan last week also, and I was just like, oh my gosh, the level of dishonesty, stupidity, pandering just to make a point that really doesn't even need to be made, but you want to make it because you want to find some sort of false accusation against the Jews, is so deceptive, especially because she does it, and together with Brianna was also doing it underneath the title of championing a cause that really has been either attacked or has been misused. So yes, I agree with you in terms of the whole hashtag believe all women that was taken too far. It didn't make any sense, blah, blah. And so for those people that were calling out the fact that hashtag believe all women didn't make any sense are now being given fodder to feel vindicated that you see, here's another example as to why we shouldn't believe this. My advice, if I may, particularly to women who are on the bandwagon because they think that there needs to be vindication for those that have been attacked, particularly Christians, and you're a conservative. And if I may add, only because she continues to hide behind this label as a mother. Really choose the information that you listen to, not only from Candace, but from anybody and everybody.
Yep.
There's a story, or at least a recollection of what happened to me, if I can quickly share it, when I came to the States, and I want to use it as an analogy. So yes, I had visited the United States many times before, but when I was living in the States and I realized that this was going to be my home for a season, I remember going to the grocery store, Joshua, and I walked into the aisle for bread. That's all I wanted, bread. And I was confronted by a plethora of choices. And I was just like, I just want bread. Don't give me 5,000 choices of bread. Just give me bread, and give me good bread. But then when I started, what I started to realize was that you have all of these choices. You then have to make an educated choice about the type of bread that you want to choose. And you can't just rely on the label. So just because it says it's good and it's healthy and it's got natural ingredients doesn't necessarily mean that. You also have to go and turn around and look at what the ingredients are. The same thing for the likes of Candace Owens, the same thing for the likes of many of these influencers and these individuals who call themselves informed about what's going on in Israel and all of that. Choose very wisely, choose very carefully who you are listening to. Just because it sounds right, just because it's under the banner Christ is King, take it, read the ingredients. Like, I would love to know how much Candace actually is submitted to the Lordship of Jesus Christ, because that's what declaring Christ as King is. I mean, how do you say that he is King and be in total opposition to what he says about his very own people? Are you really submitted to his Lordship? To his Lordship, really? I mean, again, conversation for another day. So choose, read the ingredients, and then process it through wise resources or wise individuals who themselves have put resources out there that you can then corroborate, because out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, a thing shall be established. So that's what I'm going to say about Candace. But my good gracious, it needs to stop.
It does. And one thing that, so I want to take the opportunity to redirect you to the resources that we have at IBSI, because, you know, when we see stuff like this, and this isn't to toot our own horn, but we've been doing this work for a long time. There's a lot of stuff that we've come across and have researched and studied and put out there that only really comes from a longevity of study and commitment from our CEO and across our staff. This is not, it's not just articles that we read here and there and posted. These are things that have been unearthed. These are things that actually weren't even on the internet until we found them and put them on there. Like what you'll see on our website, the Black Americans Supporting Israel Committee, BASIC, was an organization founded by Bayard Rustin in 1975. It was a Black civil rights organization that stood with Israel and the Jewish people. Why? Well, check it out. See what we have written about it and see what the newspaper clippings say. But this comes from dedication. Our CEO, before IBSI even existed, he was doing this stuff. Before you had Google, he was at libraries thumbing through encyclopedias and reading about the Ethiopian Jews and about different African governments and Israel and all this kind of stuff. And so this is, IBSI is like a culmination of, when it comes to our CEO, decades, and when it comes to us, years of hard work. And so, yes, we do take it a little bit personally when we see people who look like us pretend like they really care about issues in the Middle East, pretend that they care about Christian suffering, pretend that they care about what's going on in Africa. It's very, it's like real recognizes real, real also recognizes fake. Okay. So when we see people who are all of a sudden now, they want to, like Candace, like Brianna, like even people that, you know, even people that we know personally, they go out there and and it's okay. But you know, you didn't 1 year ago, you didn't care, and it's fine if you care now. But let's not act like, don't act like you have this weight on you. For a lot of people, it's not. It's a game. It's a career move, and this is not a career move for us. So IBSI.org, you can check out the resources that we have, and really look at the stuff that we've been putting out there. It will really help us thumb through and sift through a lot of this stuff. Like Olga said, as you're looking, you have to do due diligence There's a lot of stuff that we've sifted through that can help as you're coming through this stuff, because there's a lot of stuff that's intentionally meant to confuse and cause confusion. And so we try our best to weed that out as much as possible, if that makes sense. So with that, I want to turn your attention to something here, because there's this concept, and I hear this a lot, and I want to push back on this, and I want to discuss this. I didn't even tell you that we were going to talk about this, but I want to discuss this with you, because when it comes to whether we're talking about October 7th, whether we're talking about Kristallnacht, whether we're talking about the Rwandan genocide, transatlantic slave trade, I think one of the things that we tend to just say, maybe it's just a knee-jerk, is we intimate that the people who committed those atrocities somehow were not human, less than human, right? They're animals. And I get why we say that, okay? Problem is, in doing that, we downplay, we underestimate the evil that is just within human beings in general, right? That humans are capable of great evil. It's not that, Hitler was some sort of demonic. Yes, he had, as a Christian, I'll say he had demonic spirit, but Hitler was a person who had that kind of evil capacity inside of him. And we're seeing that now, whether it's jihadists or neo-Nazis. These are human beings, and we all have that capacity. And we have to understand that, because otherwise we look at history, we look at Nazi Germany, and we kind of put it in a different category. That was back in the 30s and 40s, and we've evolved past that. No, they're humans, and we have not evolved past anything. That's not true. Germany was at the top of society. Germany was considered the zenith of politics, science, engineering. They were forward-thinking people. These were the most intelligent people on the planet at the time. And they descended into Jew hatred. And they put the Jews in the ovens. And they mass murdered blacks and gays and Jews. They decided with all their intelligence that the problem is the Jew and we have to destroy the Jews, right? So obviously it wasn't their intelligence. Obviously it wasn't any of those things, other than the fact that human beings have the capacity for evil. What do you have to say about that?
I would agree with you. I think the other side effect, or the other consequence that comes about if one just places the person or the people in the box of you're an animal, is that there's then no accountability. Right. Because if you aren't seen as a human being who's committed this absolute depraved act, then why should you fully be held to be accountable? And so, yes, mankind, humans, because of the condition of the heart, are fully capable of the most level of evil. And every single one of us, it's a slippery slope, particularly when it comes to propaganda, misinformation, disinformation, when it comes to finding blame for the woes of your particular society, community, nation. And if you look at history, societies that are facing trouble or where there's a challenge in the leadership and they need a scapegoat, they start looking to the Jews, they start looking to Israel. And if we as individuals, starting with the one person and then moving on to the family and the community and nation, are very quick to immediately blame the Jews, then you need to start looking at yourself in the mirror, because one day, God forbid, the individual and then the community and the nation will look at itself and say, but how did we get here? Yeah. And why did we get where we are? Sad to say, for me, I think that America needs to do a lot of introspection. I mean, South Africa as well. We've spoken about the South African government. I'm going to be very explicit when I say the South African government, because the government does not represent what the majority of the people believe, and I would hope that the same is here in the United States. But there's a very serious problem with the governments of both nations and with what they're allowing and with what the people that are allowing this to happen, be it in their private communities, on their Facebook groups, or even just, and let's go back to Candace, Facebook, social justice warrior or keyboard warrior going, amen, amen, and you call yourself a Christian or you call yourself somebody that believes in truth, I mean, half of the things that she was spewing on Piers Morgan's show, and the very little of the highlights that I saw in relation to the interview with Brianna was plain disinformation. That if you had spent 2 to 3 minutes just really thinking about it and doing a little bit of research, not even a lot, but a little bit of research, you would have found the truth. And so it's a slippery slope for the individual, that if you just find yourself very quickly blaming the Jews, you need to put on the brakes and say, okay, what is wrong with me? Like, what is wrong with me at this time?
Yes, absolutely. And I want to show a video now in that same vein. And some of you were aware of this, but some of you may not be. As a matter of fact, the person who introduced this video to me, I knew about this history, but I'd never seen the footage. The person who sent this footage to me, it's available on YouTube, is actually the one who wrote the theme song or he wrote the music for our forum, Randy Sandoli. So you guys can check out, which I forgot to plug him, but Randy Sandoli, the album's called Simcha. That song that you always hear at the beginning is called The First 7 Miles. Check out the entire album.
Where
on everywhere. Spotify, Apple Music, whatever streams music, you can check out his album. So there he is, Randy Sandoli. Simcha is the name of the album. If you love jazz, you should definitely check it out. So Randy sent me this video called Night at the Garden. It's live footage, different pieces put together, of a pro-Nazi rally that was held in Madison Square Garden, New York, 1939. Okay, 20,000 Americans rallied in New York to support the Nazis, and this was just before the Nazis invaded Poland. Okay, so I just want to share with you this video, and then we'll continue talking from there. Our producer has it up.
Kukidnapwa ingane uDr Mandela.
Okay.
I pledge undivided allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Americans, American patriots, I I'm sure I do not come before you tonight as a complete stranger. You all have heard of me through the Jewish-controlled press as a creature with horns, a cloven hoof, and a long tail. We, with American ideals, demand that our government shall be returned to the American people who founded it.
If you ask what we are actively fighting for under our charter, first, a social just white Gentile ruled United States. Second, Gentile-controlled labor union free from Jewish Moscow-directed domination.
All right. So just so you know, the man who rushed the stage at the time, he was 26-year-old Jewish man named Isidore Greenbaum, who came to the event to oppose single-handedly what was actually happening. Obviously, as you can see in the video, he was thwarted and carried off the stage. Olga, what are your thoughts on this video?
Sure. I've never seen it before. It's jarring. Very interesting how in that gentleman's speech he mentioned the fact that they were seeking a white United States of America. I think he said white Gentile United States, which means no black people. And then in the very next breath, he expressed no Jews. And so there the Nazi party was in the United States of America, which is supposed to be, and even at that time, a beacon of democracy and freedom. They are expressly saying, forget what's happening in Europe. We're just not keeping our intention within Europe's borders, like the broad borders, obviously the different countries within Europe, but also we want to bring this across here. Yeah, no, very, very striking.
It's interesting to me that, so one of the things that, so the whole One Nation Under God, I read that this was, so my history might be wrong on this, so I apologize. I read that under God was added a little bit later. So
Because when we were watching that, I was like, okay,
right.
wait, because
so either so it was one of two things. Either they eliminated it because a lot of people say that it was added in also as a jab at communists. So either they eliminated it because of that, or I think it wasn't there yet. One of the two. Either way, it's telling. To me, it goes to show that history really does rhyme. It really does rhyme, because then you have, it's 1939. At this time, Jews are already, Hitler's building his concentration camps. As you saw, he was building his sixth one at this time. You have 20,000 Americans in support, while the Nazis used their propaganda machine to, you saw a painting of George Washington behind them. They were singing the national anthem. Why would a German say, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America? It was all a dog and pony show. You don't think that Nazi Germany was going to eventually invade the United States at some point? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. They weren't. So the whole thing was, let's infiltrate with this language that they'll understand. White this, white that, white the other. Okay? Today you have it on both ends. You have it, though, in the form of the far left, who say that Jews are white and white people are bad. Just like he had in Nazi Germany, the Nazis said, no, they aren't white, and because they're not white, they're bad. And also because they're Jewish, they control everything. Both sides say that Jews control everything. And what you also have is this appeal to whatever the flavor of the day is. So it's haunting. It's a little bit haunting to see that large of a crowd, Madison Square Garden, filled up. I've seen concerts there that were filled. I mean, it looks like a concert. It was a huge rally. So you had 20,000 people there, which means that you had other people who wanted to be there, right? If this was the age of social media, it would have been live streamed all over the place. And these were Americans supporting the Nazis because of their mutual hatred for Jews. It's so jarring to me, because one of the things that any kind of authoritarian regime, someone said just because it resonates doesn't mean it's true. Were you gonna say something?
No. So
yes, go ahead.
As you were speaking, I thought of two things, especially when you say that history does rhyme. There's a video last week or maybe the week before that went viral, where there's a black man together with, I think is his daughter, or at least somebody related to him, or even perhaps a friend, screaming, saying that Hitler should have finished you off. Yeah. And it's ironic, because here's this black man in America saying Hitler should have finished off the Jews. Meanwhile, Hitler and his ilk were saying, not only are we coming for the Jews, but we're coming for you too, black person, which they did in Europe. But not only did they want to do that in Europe, they wanted to do it here in the United States of America. So black people that are going, yay, let's support Hitler, the Nazis, and it's like, fools, like,
do you realize?
Right. You were just on the chopping block, just on the platter as much as the Jews were. That's the first thing. The second thing, and Josh, I'm remembering our time at Club Z. So for any parent or family member that knows somebody in the 8th to 12th grade, you need to send them to Club Z. Club Z is a place where, with as much as I knew before joining Club Z, I learned a lot more from history and history that's not always spoken about. And what was interesting is, at the time when Hitler was building these concentration camps, first of all, they weren't just concentration camps. They were built as factories where people were going to work. And so there is this facade as to what the real agenda was. But those who were able to read between the lines were trying to call attention to the fact that, hey, these aren't just ordinary places of work that are being built. There's a nefarious agenda behind it. Number one. Number two, people often talk about the start of World War II as being when Poland was invaded, or at least the beginning of the Holocaust. But prior to the invasion of Poland, there was already what's known as the Holocaust by bullets, where up to, or they say about 1.5 million Jews were already being killed even before it was officially taking place. And why do I raise it? I raise that because if we're only going to wait until there's mass killings, until there's mass wars, it's too late already. We need to start, just like IBSI is, thank goodness, and many other organizations are, raising the alarm now, History provides us with so many examples of what will happen if we just leave things alone. And that's that video, my gosh, if that doesn't raise an alarm, I'm not quite sure what will.
No, it is the backwards thinking of, like you said, the black man in New York with his daughter, I think his son was there too, who told the Jew, I agree with Hitler. Which was like, okay, do you not understand? It's just, but that's how propaganda works right now, and we've seen this for years now. When you see the propaganda of the jihadists, the Muslim, the radical Islamists that want to kill the Jews, kill Israel, and everything, somehow in our culture, Islam has become synonymous with the left for some reason, which it couldn't be more right. It couldn't be more far right. It's very conservative. It's very ultra restrictive to women and all that kind of stuff. But for whatever reason, when you have whether it's Pride Month, or you have certain trans stuff, whatever, it's like you see these pictures and then you see a woman in a hijab or burqa next to them. I'm like, no, her family would not actually be in support. If they're actually following Islam, you would, like the whole Queers for Palestine thing, you would be thrown off a building as soon as Hamas came into your neighborhood, even with your Queers for Palestine. As a matter of fact, you might actually be offending them by waving a Queers for Palestine flag, because they're like, yeah, no, we don't support all that gay stuff, and they would throw you off a roof. But somehow the propaganda has managed to embed itself with people who are actually antithetical to their core values. How does that even work? What works by, they highlight the one thing that they agree on. Like we talk about, we got to come together and find a common ground. They do that. They go, okay, you know what? Here's the thing. You hate white people, Jews are white. Boom. You hate people who aren't white, you hate colored people, Jews are colored. What do you hate? Do you hate capitalists? Jews are controlling the world with the capital. You hate socialism? These socialist Jews are the XYZ. Jews are the only people in history who've been hated for being basically every faction of society. They were hated for being poor, they hated being rich, they're hated for being white, they're hated for being not white, they're hated for being nomads, now they're hated for having a state. You just find that thing and you explain, and that's how you get people who would otherwise, that's how you get Breonna and Candace, that's how you get the Nazis and Americans, that's how you would get radical jihadists and far left activists. You highlight and you exploit that one issue, and you just make sure that it's tailored a little bit to them. Now you have a what do you call it? Strange bedfellows, is what they call it. What were you going to say?
No, I was just chuckling internally because, if I'm not mistaken, 2 weeks ago, at least at the beginning of the month of June, there was actually a rally, either a rally or a protest march, where it was a pro-Palestinian march, and they were like, no, to the people that were from the LGBTQ community, and they were like, no, we don't want you here. They were like, but wait, we're here to support this cause, and they're like, no, we don't want you. No. So yes, very strange bedfellows.
Very strange bedfellows. But you check that out. It's called the actual video that we showed. You can find on YouTube. It's called A Night at the Garden, and the organization that has the channel is called Field of Vision. They have different footage of different things. I mean, it's just history and stuff. But it's just chilling, and it's just, there's no commentary. It's just that. That's the entire. I think that's the entire documentary. It's just about 7 minutes. That's all the footage I think they have. Yeah. So not much has changed. So again, going back to the human thing. This human beings have the capacity for evil. Don't think that, well, if I was alive in 1939, I'd be on the stage with these. We'll see, right? What are you doing now?
I was just about to say.
What are you doing
Whatever
now?
you're doing now is what you would be doing then. And
so I'm sad to think of some of the, in the music space, peers who, I'm like, yeah, unfortunately, we used to get along and all that stuff, but if we were both alive back then, you would be at that rally, or at the very least, you'd be at home going, well, I can kind of see where they're coming from. Why? Because the thing is, it's easy to look back and say, oh, the Nazis were wrong. But the thing is, in the moment, with all the peer pressure and the stuff coming at you, it's different. There are things that 100 years from now, people are going to look back on today and be like, wow, I can't believe they XYZ. I can't believe, well, yeah, because you weren't there. They're going to have their own set of issues. But there are things now that you're capitulating to right now, today, that you know you probably shouldn't be, that 100 years from now, it's going to be easy to say, well, that person was stupid. You should get those things right now. It really behooves us to be on the right side of history. And being on the right side of history is never going to be easy. It's never going to be easy. It's always going to be difficult. You're going to lose friends. You're going to get threats. You might even get persecuted for it. Being on the right side of history is not just something that you do to give yourself a rush. Like, you're putting yourself in danger when you do that. And people back then were Isidore Greenbaum wasn't just putting a Palestinian flag on his graduation cap where he knew he wasn't going to suffer any consequences because everyone's doing it. He rushed the stage at a pro-Nazi rally. I don't even know if he got killed for it. This man was risking his entire life. He had kids, he had a wife, 26 years old, he had his whole life ahead of him. He was willing to die in that instant for what he believed in. That's standing on the right side of history. Any other thoughts you want to say?
Well, I think in addition to everything that you said, which I totally agree with, is that it's hard work to stand on the right side of history. Again, going back to the fact that there's such a plethora of information that's out there, and oftentimes, particularly because we're in a culture where everything comes very quickly and has to be very quickly, you're rushing and you're having to go somewhere. To take the time to be able to meticulously and diligently sift through what are the issues, do the research, do the homework, so that you can really, in your learning, not just learn, but also get understanding that's becoming even more crucial. I saw a video, an informative video on what I call an anti-Israel Instagram page. And what was striking was that they were talking about slavery in Mauritania. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And I was listening and I was like, this is true. This is true. This is true. And so here you have a platform that spews hatred against Israel, but then there's this tiny speck of truth. And so then the temptation could be like, well, we know that slavery is an issue. We've heard the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel raise this. So there must be some sort of credibility to the fact that if they're raising this truth, then everything else that they're raising has got to be truth. And the answer to that is like, no, just because this might be true, that also isn't necessarily true. I remember, again, talking about Club Z when I was there, I always used to tell the young people and say, don't just believe what I'm saying because I'm saying it. Yes, I am assuring you that I've done my research, I've done my homework, I believe that I'm credible. You can check out all of the years that I've been doing this, but still, for yourself, go and do the research, go and do the homework. That's so important. What was interesting, though, about that particular informative little video is, Joshua, they failed to highlight the perpetrators of the slavery, like who the slave masters were. It was like said,
they said Arabs.
They alluded to it, but then they just moved on. Oh my good gracious! If the Jews were involved in that, we would have had reel after reel after reel after reel. And so again, highlighting the fact that unfortunately, and I've written about this specifically, and I think you may have also as well, is that because the narrative at the moment has to be that if it's the Jews' fault, only then do you raise big attention about it. That causes that really deserve the world's attention in terms of human rights activism and petitioning at the United Nations and various other international bodies, as well as governments bringing action against the offending governments. Those people, those issues are not receiving the attention that they need to, because we can't blame the Jews. And so real people in their suffering are not being given the attention that they deserve.
Absolutely. That is absolutely correct. And that's the biggest tragedy, is that people who need the attention don't get it, while we squabble about things that aren't true or don't really matter as much. Yes, ma'am. So, ladies and gentlemen, we want to show you, and thank you for bringing that up, because I meant to talk about that a little bit earlier about the video about Mauritania. What it's saying is true, and if you follow that particular page, you'll see that. But you can also come to our event tomorrow in Charlotte and hear about it from a political activist, from a political leader, and former Sudanese slave, Simon Deng. himself. Go ahead.
I mean, he's got lots of layers to his political activism. One of the things that we heard from him the last time, which might be of even, I don't want to say greater interest in the slavery part, but added interest, is the fact that he was part of the petitioning for the separation of South Sudan from Sudan. So here also is somebody who went through this incredible pain, and as a result of it, did something about it, right?
Yes.
And as a result of his labor together with others, we now have South Sudan. It doesn't solve the great pain and the war that many people are going through, but it was an action moving forward to hopefully one day there being peace.
Absolutely. Yes. So we want to show you now, speaking of voices from Africa, we want to show you a voice from indigenous South Africa. It's just it's a powerful clip. And Olga, you can maybe talk for a little bit about it after we show it. That's okay.
Yeah,
You want to talk about it now, or should we show it? You want to set it up, maybe?
I can set it up. So there was a delegation of South African leaders that visited Israel several weeks ago, and included in that delegation was one of the Zulu leaders. He's actually called a king, King Hagame. He went together with some members of his church, and they thoroughly enjoyed what they saw. They were convicted in what they saw, and he's been talking about his experiences. And this particular video showcases some of what he saw and what he expresses, particularly as it pertains to the libel that Israel is an apartheid state, just like South Africa once upon a time was. So here you have a leader of the Zulus, which are one of the, if not the largest tribe, ethnic tribe, indigenous tribe in South Africa, speaking about his experience in Israel.
Check it out.
Kukidnapwa ingane. uDr Mandela ubaba wethu wake wakidnapha yiphi ingane ngesikhathi sobandlululo la eSouth Africa. Kukidnapwe izingane kwabulawa abantu abadlule kwenkulungwane bethathwa bekajwa into engayibona ngoOctober 11 kodwa zange sizwe nesodwa istatement sa president wase South Africa ekhala ngento eyenzekile eIsrael ngomhla ka7 October. Ngaso mawuthi uyalalela umuntu uzokutshela ngento eyenzeka ngo1943. Hayi, asikhulumi ngo1943. Sikhuluma ngendaba eyenzile ukuthi kusuka abantu bahlasela izwe ogogo belele bababulale baphinde baba rape. Kuyimanje kunama hostage angakabuyi. Kunezingane ezincane uhambe yiphi impenjalo uhambe nezingane ezincane. Sonke sacasuka ukuthi kwenzakalani.
Ngoba kune lenqo this understanding yokuthi they are freedom fighters balwela inkululeko. Ngithi guys, uChris Hani azange akidnap abantwana. uMandela azange ahamba bulala abantu.
What's fascinating, I mean, it's a very short clip, but layered, and I'm hoping that one day IBSI can actually do a video or some sort of visual on this lie, this comparative, that what Hamas did on October 7 was an act of resistance, just like freedom fighters would do, and more specifically South African freedom fighters, because he alludes to that in his commentary. But he challenges the whole notion. He mentions 1943. He actually meant 1948. He challenges the notion that people were saying, well, October 7 happened because of what Israel did in 1948. And he was like, forget about 1948. 1948 is in history, whether that was accurate or not accurate. And we know that comparison or the reason given is a total lie. He's like, forget about that. Look at what happened on October 7. There can be, and there is no justification for the kidnapping, for the murder, for the burning and the beheading. And so he's like, first of all, that's a problem. And second of all, as a South African, and Joshua, not only as a South African, but as a South African Zulu, why am I highlighting that? If anybody knows the history of South Africa, Zulus are warriors. I mean, some of the greatest and most, what's another word, Olga?
Not vicious.
Yeah, vicious is not really it, but like when you talk about blood and gore, right? I need to use language, but in terms of really fighting, it was at the hands of the Zulus. Like they know what it is to go to war, and so I'll say that, you know, here is a person who represents a people who are not afraid to war, going, that was unacceptable. we even ourselves disassociate with what Hamas did. And also he referenced Nelson Mandela and the host Bafana. He mentioned an individual called Chris Hani, who's a very renowned person who was part of the liberation in South Africa, saying that even he, in his fighting for the liberation of Black people during the apartheid years, they never did that. They never kidnapped children. They never hid in civilian homes and launched rockets against the apartheid government and those type of things. I've heard people say, yes, but Olga, it's all guerrilla fighting. I'm like, no, do you even know how the ANC fought? Another thing, and I'll keep quiet for this because I do think that we should expand it further, is Hamas has its charter, which we know calls for the death not only of Jews living in the land, but Jews all across the world. And that is that's the backdrop against which they do what they do. The liberation movement, the ANC, the freedom fighters of the apartheid era, they were acting against what was called the Freedom Charter, Joshua. And if you look at the Freedom Charter, it says nothing about killing and wanting to destroy. It says nothing about that. So even the informative document that espouses the reason for what they need to be doing and why they want to be doing is totally different.
Yeah. Even in guerrilla warfare, even in blood and killing and all that stuff, there was still a focus.
Yeah.
Right. We talk about I mean, every group of people has their peaceful freedom fighters and their aggressive freedom fighters. Even in Jewish history, we talk about the King David Hotel. There's controversy around it, and there people like to compound lies on it. But people died, and the goal was to kill certain people, just not innocent people. They were trying to liberate. So, you have Malcolm X and you have Martin Luther King. So even in the ANC, we even learned when we went to South Africa with our IBSI ambassadors about the Jews there were some Jews, South African Jews, who fought alongside the more radical freedom fighters of the ANC in blowing up structures and stuff. Even in all of that, murdering and kidnapping children was never a part of the strategy.
Correct.
Slitting the throats of elderly defenseless people, it was always directed straight at the people who were oppressing them, whether it was the military, government officials, whatever. You can say that's good or bad or whatever you want to say about it. But they knew that, well, first of all, I don't think most of them had the humanity in them to just kidnap, like, for instance, the ANC, a white kid and kill it. I mean, that's just not, how is that going to help your cause? If anything, you're giving people more fodder to say, see, these Black people are animals. So there was never, and you can try to prove me wrong if you want to, I've never seen, even in the most radical of movements during those eras, civil rights and everything, the strategy of not only killing other people's kids, but sacrificing our own children.
Yeah.
I want my child to get killed because it's going to be good PR for us. Forget that. I mean, in the darkest of times, no one has ever resorted to that strategy for PR purposes. So just to what you said, when Hamas, when the pro-Palestine freedom fighters, quote unquote, try to hop on that, it's not authentic. Their goal is not. There's no. What are they trying to be free from? There's no freedom that they're fighting for. Their goal is genocidal, and they're using the modern issue of the day, just like the Nazi Party used it in New York, because in 1939 America there was a lot of overt racism. There's a lot of lynchings and all that stuff. So they use the whole white is better and white. They did that because they knew that it would speak to America. Now what speaks to America is still white, but in a different way, and so that's what they do. Before it was white is good. Now it's white is bad, but still the Jew haters use whatever the pulse of the society is and say, well, that's what we're trying to do. And that's what they try to do in South Africa as well. All right, so let's, it's 9:01, but we do want to share with you one more video, just because Truth to Power Live had its first episode aired yesterday. Thank you for those who tuned in. Our CEO and founder, Pastor Dumisani Washington, will be doing this. I think it's weekly.
Yeah.
It's its own radio show. So it's kind of like what we do here, except he's going to be talking about a plethora of issues, sometimes having guests on and everything. It's going to be great. So please check out this recap. Enjoy.
Welcome everyone to Truth to Power Live with Dumisani Washington. I am your host. The child fares the best when he or she is raised by their mother and their father. We have all the stats. And again, Barack Obama cites some of those stats.
We know the statistics that children who grow up without a father are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime.
Tell me how niggas supposed to lay back and take shit. Tell me how to sneak around and hide. How to sit up like some goddamn dog begging when welfare ladies come around. Come on, tell me all about that, Mr. Garbage Man. Charles!
An October 7th massacre happens every week in an area like Sudan. In Nigeria, Boko Haram bring back our girls.
Truth to Power Live with Jimmy Sunny Washington.
Those were our kids, by the way. Right at the very end, we had to say that. But you guys, check out, subscribe to any. It's all over the place now. It's going to be on YouTube soon. It's on all the social media platforms, on Rumble. It's going to soon be on Spotify and all that stuff. So please, wherever you see it, you can follow TTP Live on Instagram and Twitter. It's TTP Live too, because someone already took TTP Live. Join it, follow, and stay up to date on the episodes that come out. That's Truth to Power Live. Go to ttplive.com and you'll be able to see.
No, I was just going to say it's Truth to Power Live with Dumi Sani Washington. I've just got the kid's voice in my head.
Yes, Truth to Power Live with Dumi Sani Washington, WNEW HD3 FM 102.7. That is based out of New York. And we are looking forward to seeing you guys there. All right, so that is all the time we have for today. I do want to remind you to a couple of things. To become a legacy builder, which is a monthly giver to IBSI, your donations are tax deductible, and those monthly donations really help us to move forward. Go to ibsi.org/donate and become a legacy builder right now, this minute. You can also, our Speakers Bureau Chief, Olga Washington, she did an interview this week on TBN with Raj Nair, which is a great friend of ours. And you can check it out. It's on YouTube. What's the page called that he runs?
The show is called Can I Trust the Bible?
Can I Trust the Bible?
So we were talking about Israel in the context of trusting the Bible.
Yes, so please check that out. And it's been getting a lot of hits. Really some great stuff in there, really great gems you can take and share with your friends. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for commenting. I'm seeing all the comments, especially Pastor Matrilla Hall again. Thank you, shout out to you. I've been seeing some other people here, whoever media players, thank you for your comments. You guys, thank you for coming and engaging. Please share these live sessions with your friends. When we go live, we really rely on you, and you've been doing an amazing job just getting our stuff out there. So thank you so much. Tune in next week. We'll be here on Monday, same time, same place, Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. We look forward to seeing you, and we hope to see you tomorrow in Charlotte, North Carolina. Thank you guys, and have a good rest of your week.
Good night.